The sexist double standard at work. Clearly,
it is kind of a double standard, but it's a double standard like in the opposite way.
Clearly, more anime women need to remove their shirts because anime men are allowed to. Hashtag free the nip.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Anime Club After Dark, the podcast that delves into all things anime, manga, and otaku culture related. I'm your host, Alex, but you can call me Senpai, and joining me tonight, I have our Chivalry of Shota's Shotaro.
I like big butts, and I cannot lie.
You other butters can't deny.
Girl walking an itty bitty waist.
And a round thing in your face.
Can we continue?
All right, so tonight you and I are going to be talking about something that's a little bit of a, I guess you could call it a bit of a meta topic, but before we actually get to that, there are some news items that we actually want to talk about a little bit beforehand. Some of this stuff is just some sort of housekeeping stuff that's been happening over the last couple weeks that I just wanted to briefly touch on. One of those being that HBO Max launches at the end of May 27th, as a matter of fact. In fact, by the time this comes out, HBO Max should have launched. And it was announced recently that in that launch will be 17 anime titles from Crunchyroll, including the likes of Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, Re:Zero, Bungo Stray Dogs, Kill la Kill, Your Lie in April, Erased, 91 Days, just to name a few, as well as the first 2 seasons of Konosuba, of hopefully many more to come. I find it interesting because this is also on the backs of knowing that HBO Max will be offering, I believe, most, if not all, of the Studio Ghibli film library. So that will be the place in the West from now on to get your Studio Ghibli streaming fix. I'm wondering if this is like the first step in perhaps HBO becoming like a legitimate anime streaming service on top of the like 800 million we already have, and perhaps even licensing their own anime in the future, like exclusively.
Girl,
what do you think, Sho?
Amazon tried, and they crawled back into their hole. So HBO, you can try too. We're going to see if you're going to stay or crawl back.
Well, to be fair, they're doing this, at least this rollout of HBO Max right, by not putting everything behind 2 paywalls. That was Amazon's big, like, fuck up, was that they put their anime service behind a second paywall on top of Prime, which HBO seems to not be doing.
I mean, a lot of other new streaming services have tried and failed.
That's true.
So I'm not entirely sure if this one will stand the test of time. I have
HBO does have a lot of money already behind it, so it has that going for it.
So did Amazon, so.
That's true. I mean, you're right. The time will definitely tell. I definitely don't think we need another exclusive streaming service, though. But if HBO just wants to be a place where you can get anime in addition to other places, I guess that's fine. Hell, for me, I think it's worth having HBO Max just for being able to watch all of the Studio Ghibli movies.
Probably. I've never watched one.
But anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because I think it's interesting that they're licensing anime basically from Crunchyroll. So it'll be interesting to see if anything else comes of that over time. Something else I wanted to briefly touch on, obviously because of the whole coronavirus thing that's going on around the world, there are a lot of anime series that we obviously know that are getting delayed, and manga releases. 2 that I wanted to just briefly touch on are kind of historic in that it's the first time that these very long-running properties have ever gone on hiatus, that being the manga series Golgo 13, which has been in publication for 52 years now without ever having to go on hiatus, and that's like absolutely freaking amazing. And the other one is the anime Sazae-san, which is, I do believe, yes, it is the world's longest running animated television series. It's been running continuously for 45 years every week, and for the first time in that span, it's actually going on a hiatus, and it will actually air reruns. So I just wanted to bring that up for how like unprecedented these are and how long running these series actually are. I'm assuming you don't read and or watch either of those.
I'm assuming you don't either?
I have watched Sazae-san. I have never read Golgo 13.
Of course you have. I have not read or watched those.
Okay. I say I have watched Sazae-san. It's aimed at a very, young audience, so I did watch it when I was younger, but I haven't really watched it in many, many years.
I see.
But I have watched it in the past. Another news item that I want to get to, and this is actually very exciting to me personally, is that it was announced very recently by Viz that the Inuyasha series is getting a brand new anime spinoff titled Yashahime Princess Half Demon. And allegedly it's going to focus on the daughters of both Sesshomaru and Inuyasha. So that'll be interesting. I want to know who the fuck decided to birth a child with Sesshomaru. But that's a story that I hope we actually get answered. A question we actually get answered soon. I don't know. I know you've told me in the past that you haven't really watched Inuyasha, right?
No, I have not.
Well, as someone who has watched Inuyasha, it's very exciting for me because it was one of the formative anime that I had growing up that definitely got me really interested in anime back in the early 2000s. So it's just cool to have it back. I'm hoping that there will at least be cameo appearances from some of the characters in Inuyasha. I'm assuming there will be. But according to this press release, this anime is going to be airing this fall. Considering what's going on right now, I have my doubts about that, but we shall see. And the last piece of news that I wanted to get to is also another anime announcement. So Jun Maeda has come out of his 5-year hiatus because every 5 years he likes to make everyone cry. Reuniting with Key, PA Works, and Aniplex, they are going to be doing an anime original series called The Day I Became a God. I'll give it to Key. They're still going with the giant fucking eyes. I mean, they've had this art style for 20 plus years now, and they're sticking with it. I gotta hand it to anyone that sticks with something for that long.
Looking at that promotional art, I had assumed the title of this show was Goddess, but maybe, unless the word Kami-sama,
maybe they're trying to be gender neutral.
It might have been gender neutral, or it might have been gendered male. I'm kind of curious as to
if this character in the art is a dude. I'm definitely watching this.
I am skeptical. I would like my questions to be answered.
But yeah, I mean, Jun Maeda, who, like I said, every 5 years he likes to make everyone cry. Back in 2010, it was with Angel Beats, and then 2015, it was with Charlotte. He's also known as the writer with the key visual novels, Kanen, Air, Clannad, and Little Busters. So we shall see what he's able to create for us this time. I'm personally looking forward to this. This is also something that has been scheduled to air in October. Again, I have my doubts about that, but we shall see. Shall we actually get on to what we're talking about tonight, this show?
What are we talking about?
We are going to be talking about something that I'm sure won't divide absolutely anyone listening to this.
Oh, it's a very controversial topic.
We're going to be talking about this idea of sexualization and objectification of anime characters. Anime, manga, light novel characters. We're not specifically limiting it to anime. But I do want to start out by saying, yes, you and I are both fully aware that we're talking about fictional characters that do not exist in real life.
I believe legally entities are people. So don't you tell me that my husbando isn't a real person.
Hey, Sho, I hate to say this, but your husbando doesn't even know you exist.
So that was a nice podcast. It's nice that my stay at Anime Club After Dark. I will really miss you. Bye.
Anyway, so the first question I want to ask about this is, since I did mention it, do you believe it's actually even possible to either over-sexualize or objectify a fictional character, or is this something that just comes down to the personal artistic preference or taste of the person viewing the media?
You're gonna have to expand on what you mean by artistic preference. I'm not entirely sure what you're trying to say.
Some people, like how some people have certain preferences for body types.
Oh, so are you talking about
an actual person to date?
Okay.
That's kind of what I mean, just in an artistic sense, because these are fictional characters that are represented visually.
And we're talking about, because I feel like this question is based on a controversy that recently happened. Am I confused?
I don't know. What kind of controversy are you talking about, Sho?
I feel like it's something you posted in our server. No?
You'll have to actually... I post so much that you'll have to actually remind me.
I don't remember the actual thing. Well, wasn't there like a fan artist who got criticized on Twitter?
Yes. There was a fan artist who was, I didn't even think about this. No, this isn't what I was talking about, but I'm actually kind of glad that you mentioned it. I'm going to casually scroll up through our Discord server and see if I can find it. I'm staggered that you actually remembered that.
I just look at this question and I think Alex is going to go on a rant about how everyone wants to draw these women with huge tits and how they're allowed to draw them whether people like it or not. I don't even know what that lady drew or that man artist drew. All I know is that people were angry.
I swear to God, I know what you're talking about.
Well,
I just can't find it in our server.
On a similar note, there were artists who drew that character from Overwatch, the larger one, skinny.
May, yes.
Yes. So that's basically what you were talking about. In the thing that you posted on our server about like an artist doing their own style.
I found it. Yeah. Okay. So it was back at the end of April. There was a popular fan artist who posts a bunch on Twitter, Sakimi-chan. She was accused of being fat phobic because she did a drawing tutorial about how she personally draws there are 3 different body styles, and none of them were particularly, shall we say, overweight looking.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Somehow that became that the artist is fat phobic. But yeah, that's the specific controversy you're talking about. I didn't even really think about this when I put all this together. But you are kind of right. That's something to talk about this.
Interesting. Well,
that is a type of preference, though, because some people have a particular preference for more traditionally skinny characters, whereas some people like characters that are a little big.
I mean, this is a complicated question because just because you find skinny women attractive, for example, doesn't mean you necessarily will draw skinny women.
That's kind of that seems like the conclusion that some people might be drawing from that. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think if you give an artist enough money, they'll typically draw just about anything.
There's also, okay, I didn't mean to bring up this random point, but like talking about fan artists and actual people who write stories are 2 different things. But why don't you answer your own question, and
okay,
then I will, and then maybe I will understand where this is coming from.
I can if I were to answer the question myself, I would say yeah, it is possible to over-sexualize a character in reference to the type of story being told. Like if you're trying to tell a story that doesn't really need some kind of sexual innuendo or any kind of sexual subplot, then yeah, it's certainly it's certainly possible to over-sexualize a fictional character that way.
Yeah, so there are a
because
lot
it doesn't
of, like,
serve the plot.
Yeah, there's a lot of if, ands, or buts. A lot of buts.
No pun intended.
A lot of buts. Like, it depends on a lot of different things. One of the things, like you said, is the type of story being told, the personality of the character. If the character is going through, like, a really serious character arc, like, I don't know, overcoming the death of their parents, then if they're getting sexualized, you know, you're not going to take that character seriously. So
yeah, it's like having an anime where something like very serious like that happens, like the death of a character, and then, you know, a character that's very close to them's, like, the very next episode they're in a bikini in a beach episode. Like, this is totally very different from what you've shown me, and it doesn't seem very appropriate.
Exactly. And, you know, like you said, genre comedy shows, I feel, are definitely have more leeway in sexualization, which is
absolutely.
Hence the marriage of rom and com, and more like mysteries or thrillers or drama a little bit.
Yeah, just dramas in general.
Yeah. I mean, you can have some... Well, I mean, drama can be also comedic, but anyway, well, I guess not. Anyways, more in-depth plots can get sidetracked by...
Well, a good example, like a somewhat recent example, something like Vinland Saga, right? Did that need any character to be sexualized? No, and thank goodness it didn't.
Now I'm thinking, was there sexualized? No, I don't think there was.
But wouldn't it have been really out of place if you just suddenly had an episode or a scene where a character was just overtly sexualized? It would have been so out of place.
Well, technically, they sexualized the villagers that they pillaged from when they raped them.
Okay.
But see, that's the type of
that's kind of off screen.
That's the type of sexualization which would make sense, because again, there's so many ifs, ands, or buts. Some make sense, some don't.
Yeah. That's why I say it definitely depends on the tone and the type of story that you're trying to tell. And as you say, comedy has a lot of leeway when it comes to things like this, because there's a lot of jokes you can make about sex and sexualization.
Yeah.
A somewhat recent example of that may be Interspecies Reviewers, which I wouldn't classify necessarily as an overt comedy, but it certainly uses comedy in a sexual way.
I feel like it uses sex in a comedic way.
Well, that's kind of what I meant to say, but I said it backwards.
Yeah, which is interesting because, like, you don't really see, well, I guess you do, where the main idea of the show is just to sexualize, and then you'll just add a side of comedy. But yeah, those two things definitely go together.
Yeah.
Because they're both lighthearted. They both, like, you don't think a lot. You don't invest a lot of emotion. It's just there.
And like you say, like, the genre of the show can certainly affect it as well. Like, you know, an ecchi anime is intentionally supposed to titillate the audience, so you expect characters to be sexualized in that. Especially if it just comes out right at the very beginning. It's like, this is an ecchi anime, get the fuck over it.
I mean, I guess, but some, like, shows are tagged as ecchi, and then they really don't need to be ecchi to, like, actually tell the story they're trying to tell. They just, like, just added that tag and be like, we're also an ecchi show, but we don't really need to be, but we are.
Do you mean like Danmachi?
You know, I see Danmachi clearly, I don't know. So Danmachi is trying to tell a story, like an adventure fighting story.
Like a fantasy adventure series.
Yeah, but, like, the actual fantasy adventure isn't that great. The problem with Danmachi is that it's a bad story in general, so it can't.
It's a bad story.
It's not
but
good
really
at anything
great
it tries.
Designs. It's great character designs because everyone's showing fucking skin.
Oh. I mean, there is a lot of skin going on. But one that I was definitely thinking about is, like, Fire Force, where
Oh yes,
it's trying to tell. Well, that's not a good example either, honestly.
I think in regards to a character like Tamaki, it is, because I think the fan service in that gets overused really quickly.
Yeah, but it's not like it's trying to tell a story, because its actual story is bad. So,
I mean, it's trying to tell a story. It's not a very good one.
I mean, my main problem with Fire Force is that its demographic is clearly a young male audience. Like, and when I say young male, I mean like 13.
Yeah, 12, 13, 14.
Yeah. And I am uncomfortable with the idea of an anime that is aimed at 12 to 13-year-olds having super sexualized characters. And that's a big problem to me. I would have super loved to show Fire Force to my younger relatives, but I can't because there's fucking tits everywhere.
Yeah, like Fire Force in general has a really simplistic story that you would think would make a great gateway anime for younger audiences, but then you look at the fan service in there and it's like, I can't show this to a 10-year-old.
Yeah, that's completely inappropriate. I don't know if that's a Japanese thing because apparently Japan doesn't give a fuck about sex.
It doesn't. Japan, the West, and especially the US and Canada more specifically, we tend to treat sex and sexuality as something that's still kind of taboo to talk about. At least some aspects of it are taboo to show and talk about. And so we kind of just sweep it under the rug and it's we'll acknowledge that this exists, but don't talk about it. But then you see in Japanese works, not just anime, Japanese works in general, you'll see scenes of characters just bathing together naked. And it's this is seen as normal.
I'm not sure. But I definitely cannot show it to my younger acquaintances.
Yeah. I mean, and like I say, it's kind of a shame in Fire Force. I mean, it's a shame that its story isn't better either, but it's also a shame that because it has a lot of those elements of a good gateway anime, it's just because of the overt fan service and the fact that there are just tits and half-dressed characters in random scenes throughout the show, you can't show it to a really young audience. Or at least you don't feel good showing it to a young audience.
No, you really can't.
I have some 6 and 7-year-old cousins that I'd like to get into anime. I can't show them Fire Force.
No, you shouldn't.
No, you shouldn't. So yeah, that does kind of speak to the whole demographic thing. And whether it's actually acceptable to do this. In a lot of shonen, which are again designed to be marketed to and appeal to young male audiences, it's weird to see those sort of fan servicey sexualization moments in there. Like Fairy Tail's a good example of that. There's the character of Lucy gets sexualized and objectified all the time.
Does she?
More than she probably should in a show that's designed to appeal to very young male audience.
I didn't really notice. I don't know if she was overtly sexualized, but she's got she has very large proportions.
Yes, she has very large proportions. That's a great way to put it, and we'll just leave it there.
But
same with Hestia and Danmachi, though. Her boobs get bigger the longer that story goes on.
Honestly, I really liked Hestia's initial character design, but in the second season, it was just distasteful. The size of her boobs. It was just
And then
too
in the
much.
OVA where she's running around in a bikini and her boobs are just spilling out all over the place. I'm like, girl, by the third season, you're going to be like quadruple D titties going on here.
That's unfortunate.
And then it's the exact opposite of something like the Monogatari series where the character of Hanakawa seems to get bigger boobs the further back you go in the story.
Oh my.
It's as the story went on, they realized, I think her boobs are just a little too big.
I don't even know what genre Monogatari is. Monogatari can be sexual because it's a weird show anyways, so...
It is. Monogatari is designed to appeal to a more mature audience anyway from its outset. So the sexualization in there not only is appropriate for the audience it's attempting to appeal to, it's appropriate for the story it's trying to tell.
Mm-hmm. And going back to Fairy Tail, I found it interesting that you brought that up because Fairy Tail has a lot of sexualized male characters.
That's true.
Especially Gray, who like always is naked.
It's shirtless and naked.
And like even Natsu is barely wearing anything. So, but that doesn't feel weird because I guess we have different expectations from men and women.
Does it feel weird because it's a male character, or does it not feel weird to you because it's a male character and you just happen to be a male yourself?
But I'm interested in men.
That's true. See, but I feel the exact same way because like I don't know if it's because I'm a dude or because I kind of am interested in dudes as well, but I don't see it as necessarily a problem when I see like a guy running around shirtless. Yet if I saw a woman running around shirtless in an anime, that would immediately like stand out to me. It's like, oh shit, what's going on?
The sexist double standard at work. Clearly,
it is kind of a double standard, but it's a double standard like in the opposite way. Where
clearly more anime women need to remove their shirts because anime men are allowed to. Hashtag free the nip.
I mean, I'm not going to disagree with you there.
Actually, there is no nip, so you can't free it. Sorry.
That's true. Well, in anime, there typically isn't with men.
That's unfortunate. Well, oh yeah. Wait, why do men not have nipples but women do? Fucking sexism.
That is a good question. I don't know where that trend in anime started, but it really needs to end because it is kind of creepy when you see a male character with his shirt off and he has no nipples. I look down at myself sometimes. I'm thinking something's not right here.
Nipples are too feminine. If you have a nipple, then you're gay.
The feminine nipple.
Yeah. Men
so like
don't
the
have
feminine
nipples.
penis.
I don't know what kind of gender you are.
I don't know. That's something that's kind of unique. It's certainly unique to animation, but it's also pretty unique to anime because in like Western animated stuff with actual human characters, typically if a male character takes their shirt off or has their shirt off in any scene, they have nipples.
So the nipples are ugly and gross. So
I'm gonna have to disagree with you there, man.
We have to. It's only allowed moe things in anime, so nipples are not allowed. That's my justification.
All right, so I guess this is gonna be like the weirdest fucking transition, but the whole like the context of things like sexualization and objectification. There are some anime out there that sort of have a meta narrative with things like that, where you'll have characters within the show objectify or sexualize a character, even though the show itself doesn't.
So I'm gonna stop you right there.
Okay.
So I was gonna say that there were two different types of objectification. The first type is in the actual show. So contextually, there's when one character sexualizes another, like what we were talking about in Vinland Saga, when one character rapes another. And then...
Which you don't actually see, you just hear about.
We have a different type of sexualization where the director of the show indirectly sexualizes the characters, like in Danmachi, where the tits grow and jiggle and people are shirtless. Like technically no one is sexualizing anyone. It's just like the camera shots, and whenever the director decides to put in a beach episode, there's like, or
a hot springs episode.
It was the director's idea to do that. It's like the characters aren't really sexualizing each other. It's just like we are being presented with a sexual situation that is not necessarily relevant. So
Yeah, it's like in scenes of conversation sometimes, especially between two rather attractive female characters in an anime, you'll see like the camera angle shift to some kind of low butt shot on one of the characters during the conversation. It's like, are you just doing this to distract me from the fact that this conversation you've written is really boring, so you're just showing me an ass?
I don't know, because sometimes the conversations are interesting.
Like in the Monogatari series.
And then there's a very weird camera shot for no reason. I don't. But with the Monogatari series is not a good example. But yes, they do that in the Monogatari series, but it's almost like they're making fun of it in the Monogatari series. It's almost like,
yeah, I mean, they kind of are
a deconstruction of ecchi. But in other shows, it is not used sarcastically. It is like used as a serious filler while the conversation goes on. And I'm not entirely sure, is that like to sell merch or...
I don't know, but it is distracting sometimes, especially when it happens in a scene where it would be just as good without it.
Is it because maybe they wanted to save on animation, so just zoom in on like a line that represents a butt crack?
I will say there are some ways though that that directors can subvert this, and probably the biggest example or the best example I can actually think of is in K-On! So there's, I mean, this is not a spoiler or anything, not that there's much to spoil in K-On! Because the plot is what it is. But there's a scene where one of the characters, Mio, falls over while she's wearing like a really, I won't say a revealing maid outfit during a performance, but it's the kind where if you bent over, you would see panties. And she falls over a cord during the...
doesn't wear an outfit where she bends over and you see panties. But
true,
keep going.
True. Revy, maybe, from Black Lagoon. But she falls over and like her butt's facing the audience, and you know, any other show you would just show the fucking panties, but it immediately shows a bowl of fucking rice that looks like striped panties. It immediately cuts to a bowl of rice that looks like striped panties.
I'm glad that you brought up this example, because that is truly the shot of the century.
I mean, it definitely subverts your expectations as an anime fan, especially, you know, as one who's seen a few ecchi series. Like, you expect that to be what happens in this scene. Like, the character falls over, she's embarrassed, because, you know, she's basically flashing her panties at the audience, so you know as an audience member you're about to see those panties, but then you cut to a fucking bowl of rice. I've always loved that transition. Like, it would have been so easy to just go the ecchi route and show the panties, but you didn't. You didn't do it.
I mean, but K-On! Isn't really an ecchi show, is it?
It isn't, but I'm just saying how easy it would have been to succumb to the temptation to do that.
But Kyoto Animation doesn't really, do they? Well, they don't usually stoop to that low of showing panties.
No, they don't.
So
they typically don't have to, because either the narrative or the characters can carry the story.
They have to waste their animation budget on more important things like water.
Like water and background art.
Exactly. But maybe we want to ask the question of what we think about this sexualization. So do we think that it's okay for directors to do these sexual camera angles and like bathhouse situations?
I think we've kind of touched on it. I think it depends on the situation. I think there are situations where, yeah, it's perfectly acceptable to do that, to sexualize your characters. But there is a time and a place for it. And if you're just ruining the tone or the narrative structure of your show just to put in a panty shot or, you know, a beach episode or whatever, like, just don't do it.
Yep, that's completely true. And on the flip side, do we think it's okay for characters to sexualize, like, other characters?
Again, if the narrative needs a character to be, like, a womanizer, yeah.
So, I don't think I have an example of this, but my main problem with one character sexualizing another character is that if that's going to happen, then there has to be a reaction from someone, a bystander or the person who's being sexualized, that like is appropriate to what is happening. Because if there's just this idiot character that goes around sexualizing all these people and then no one says anything and they're just like, oh, he's just being stupid, then like that's not okay, because you're just basically enabling him. And it's like, at that point, is it the character that's sexualizing the characters, or is it the director? Is that character just a mouthpiece for the director? Because no one seems to give a fuck.
I think a good example of that might be like the character of Yohei Tsunohara in Clannad, who is kind of a comic relief character, but he's also a bit of a womanizer, and he doesn't really have a lot of respect for women. He just wants a girl. And so he constantly gets berated for this because he gets beaten up by some of the girls he approaches. And kind of just he does sort of objectify them in the way he approaches them, and he gets his comeuppance because of it.
I guess, but like I don't remember particularly how that went. But wasn't it like supposed to be a comedic thing that the girl...
he starts out as almost purely a comic relief character, but he does grow throughout the run of the show, and he kind of stops being such a womanizer.
Yeah, see, I have a problem with that because like, oh, I'm gonna sexualize you. Oh, you're hitting me. Haha, it's so funny. I'm getting beat up. I don't think that's... I'm not okay with that. Because, like, they don't... Again, that is a comedy show. See, okay, the thing with that situation, I would be okay in that kind of situation if the director, like, did a shot that would sexualize the girls. But if it's the character sexualizing the girls, and then the director is like, oh, these girls aren't really, like, this is going to be a comedic situation where he like pretends to get punished for his sexualization, but he doesn't actually. Like, to me, that's a bit off-putting.
What if they do both?
That's a lot of things happening at once, Alex.
I was gonna like the whole thing with Clannad, like there's one scene in particular that does stand out where as he's getting beaten up by one of the girls, you can kind of see upper skirt. So
well, that's even worse. Even worse.
What about something like Chobits, where like the whole like sexualization is sort of played for laughs in general, where in Chobits, since it revolves around a group of like androids that you have to turn on by pushing a button that's in between their legs. Like, if that's not a fucking metaphor for hitting the G-spot, I don't know what is.
That's fine, because that's so ridiculous that you can make it sexual. It's fine.
Okay.
Listen, I mean, don't question my judgment. Okay?
I don't disagree with you.
Again, this is all our opinions. I mean, whether you agree or disagree with these situations, it's up to you.
Yeah, this is a very subjective topic, which is kind of why I thought it was worth talking about. That, you know, there's a lot of people that would have different, like for the whole Chobits thing, there's a lot of people that would think having to reach between an android's legs that is designed to appear very feminine.
Well, I haven't even watched Chobits. Unnecessary. I don't know if Chobits has like an actual plot going on for it. I assume it does not.
It does.
It does?
It does, actually, yes.
Well,
but it starts out with that whole thing. You have to turn them on by pushing a button in between their legs.
Oh, that's how it starts?
how the whole story starts. Like, you find out that the whole thing starts when he finds this like abandoned, broken down android, brings her home, and he can't figure out how to turn her on. And he's like, he looks all over the body, and then he realizes, where's the only place I haven't looked? In between her legs.
Well, it depends on how serious the story is. Maybe
it gets more and more serious as the story goes along.
I'm not entirely sure. I haven't seen Chobits.
You should watch Chobits. I like it a lot.
I'm not watching Chobits. It's too moe. But yeah, I was kind of thinking of Grimgar as an example of a character that was sexualizing everyone and no one gave a fuck, which was Ranta. And he just fucking sexually harasses every fucking woman he sees, and nothing really happens. And he's just like, everybody's just like, oh, we have to put up with him because he's our comrade and we have to stick up for our friendos. But at the same time, he's also a dirtbag that literally traumatizes women. So
this is like an example of a fictional character where if they were a real person, no one would have anything to do with them because they're a literal piece of shit.
Yeah, and no one, like, I understand that, like, that the director was trying to characterize him as an asshole, but at the same time, he never gets his comeuppance. He never gets his karma, at least in the show.
Well, it's also worth mentioning he doesn't really get that in the manga either. Like, he never really changes.
Or the
much.
novel. But, I mean...
that's what I meant to say, the novel, not the manga.
Yeah, like, in that case, if you... Like I've been saying, if you're gonna have a character that sexualizes them, he has to be he or she has to be reprimanded by the characters in the story, or else, you know, it's basically just a director sexualizing people. So,
you know, when you said Grimgar, I had to stop for a second, like, ooh, Grimgar, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
I know. And even when it was airing, it wasn't that popular. You guys should watch Grimgar, guys. It's just so it's really good and no one likes it. No.
But that is a really good example of a character who definitely objectifies and sexualizes people around him, and then just absolutely learns nothing from it.
And he doesn't get punished by
and no
anything.
one even calls him out for it either. That's the worst thing. Like that's one of the things I actually didn't like about Grimgar. Well, the anime in particular, that no one ever calls him on his fucking bullshit.
I know.
It's like they always like, well, I don't like him, but we gotta work with him. Like, no, you don't. Find someone else.
Exactly.
There's a million other people in this world.
I don't know if there's a million other people, but honey, you're
you
better
get my
off
point. They
without
weren't
him.
limited to just using him.
Yeah.
It is stuff like that does irritate me from a narrative standpoint. Because, you know, a writer should definitely know better. Like, a character like this would not be tolerated for very long IRL.
No.
So what about something like Kill la Kill, which is pretty sexual in how it presents itself and doesn't even really try that hard to tell a serious story.
With Kill la Kill,
it's just an action-oriented show.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the symbolism and metaphors, I think, was trying to send a message that you're supposed to be comfortable with your body, so you should expose yourself, which I personally took as a positive message. So I was fine with the Kill la Kill sexualization because it was the outfit that was sexualizing her, not like a person. So
well, yeah, and she makes it's made very clear early in the story that the main character Ryuko is kind of uncomfortable with it at first.
Yeah.
Like she's very shy about the fact that this outfit is very revealing.
I mean, yeah, her personality definitely helps because she was shy at first, but like in general, her character is very bombastic and strong and like very in your face. So for a character like her, it seemed like an arc where she was getting over her insecurities about her body, because basically the story was like, if you get over your embarrassment about your body, you can like get stuff done, like solve the mystery about your father and stuff. So that could be interpreted as a positive message. Although it is, I mean,
the vehicle for that message is a little questionable.
It is very questionable. I can definitely understand people not liking that, but I personally liked it.
I mean, I fucking love Kill la Kill. It's one of my favorite anime ever, but I can certainly understand how people would see that, even if the overall message is one of, a positive message about being comfortable in your own skin. The vehicle for that message is definitely open to some interpretation.
Yeah, I mean, it can come off as patronizing because, she has, I guess, a stereotypically attractive body type. So
By trigger standards, I guess.
by what?
By trigger standards.
I mean, she's not like weirdly proportioned. She's
No.
pretty generic. So having an arc about accepting your body when you have a normal body might come off as like stupid.
I would say it's more some people might be inclined to be very pandered to by that message.
Yeah. I mean, I thought, yeah, so I can understand people who are not okay with Kill la Kill. But yeah, I liked the message. I liked the show specifically for the message. That was literally the only thing I liked about Kill la Kill.
Well, the action sequences are pretty good too, let's be honest.
They were, but I didn't really care for them.
And the soundtrack was good.
Oh yeah, the soundtrack was amazing.
But kind of off the back of Kill la Kill, Kill la Kill is helmed, like the main character is supposed to be the strong, independent female character. But with, she has a revealing outfit, but it kind of serves a purpose in the story. One thing I don't like is when you have these female characters that are supposed to be like main characters who you throw out there and you introduce them as these strong, independent female characters, but then they seem to wear revealing clothing for no reason. It doesn't serve the purpose of the story. It doesn't even kind of go along with their character. It's only there to get you like engrossed in this character.
Yeah, that wouldn't make sense. But also, like, I don't know what specifically you're talking about. But
well, there. As much as I actually love this show, I do kind of got to point it out. I'm kind of referring to Aqua and Konosuba.
She has a sexual outfit? Oh, you mean her skirt?
The fact that she has the Schrodinger's pantsuit.
Was that a joke they made in the show, or was that a meme?
I don't think it was ever said in the show, but I do think it was kind of started as a meme, yes.
Oh, okay. I mean, yeah, she has a short skirt, but she isn't even a serious character.
Well, that's true. And like you say, it is a comedy, so I give it a lot of leeway in that regard.
I honestly thought it was fine. See, like, it's hard for me to tell if Aqua is the kind of girl who wears short skirts because, like, it doesn't necessarily have to, like, in real life, women can have whatever personality they want, and then that the personality doesn't have to necessarily match how much skin they want to expose. Like, so to me, I am seeing Aqua's personality with the amount of skin she's exposing doesn't necessarily not make sense to me because I find that that doesn't contradict itself for me. But
what about a character like Elizabeth from Seven Deadly Sins?
Again, okay, first of all, the outfit that she wears is very exposing, but I feel like that is the type of outfit that she would wear with her personality.
See, I don't, because she seems a little more modest than that.
Really? Okay, to me, she seems like an airhead that it's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm ditzy. Oh, oops, I spilled some water on my shirt. Could you wipe it off? But my problem with Seven Deadly Sins is that Meliodas never asked for consent before he physically sexually assaults her. So
yeah, he is a little bit rapey when it comes to Elizabeth, I'll be honest.
That is my main problem with that show. I'm fine if she wants to wear some fucking tight-ass shirt that's like her boobs are popping out of, but...
I was referring more to how short her skirt is, but...
Girl, her boobs are the size of fucking Mars.
That's very true.
I don't know how she stands up. She gonna, like, literally fall down like the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
I mean, there's literally hundreds of other examples I could give of this, and we could talk about them. But
Well, one thing I wanted to bring up was that like a lot of fighting shows with feet, well, they actually are fighting each other with like swords and guns and stuff, have women that are wearing outfits that are not conducive to fighting, like that expose their vital points to being attacked, which really pulls the viewer out of the like action aspect, because if the show isn't even taking the action aspect seriously, then how are we as viewers supposed to take it seriously?
cough, Yoko from Gurren Lagann, cough.
I don't know if sure. I mean, you're not wrong.
She's fighting in a bikini and short shorts. Come on.
Yeah, but like the war that she's fighting is also a very strange one.
That's
I don't
very
even
true.
know what she's fighting, honestly.
I don't know. Like there's some of it where I expected, like, you know, Ikitosen from years ago, where it was literally just a show about girls fighting and ripping their clothes off. Like, okay, you sold that to me as an ecchi show, so I mean it's kind of shitty, but I'll take it anyway. But then just so many examples where it just doesn't need to happen, but it does.
Yeah.
I don't know, but as we've said, a lot of this comes down to personal taste, I think, about what you as a viewer are willing to subject yourself to and are willing to see. Obviously there are people who have different limits than other people. Some people don't want to see sexualized characters, and that's fine. If that's what you want, then by all means don't watch the things that do that.
This is true, but at the same time, that doesn't give complete creative license to the directors of these shows to do whatever they want and be like, oh, it's if you don't like it, it's just personal taste.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you pander or patronize the audience too much, they'll just leave.
Yeah.
After a while.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hell, I mean, this is not necessarily a sexualization thing, but you see that with like the Star Wars franchise. Like, people have left that in droves because a lot of people feel like the people that are making it now are just completely pandering to the audience.
I wouldn't know.
So I think the same thing kind of applies here, that if you just keep doing this and expecting people to show up, eventually people will stop wanting to be pandered to, or, you know, they'll just stop because it's not what they want. It's not what a majority of people want from it.
Yeah, and it's very funny because people who express their opinion on this kind of subject, whether it's like criticizing the director for being like, why would you sexualize this person, or the complete opposite, being like, oh, I like that this person is sexualized. Both of those kind of opinions like always get fucking shot down, and they start like flame wars when they don't necessarily need to. I think that both of those opinions are valid and they're both respectable, and we just have to learn to respect each other's opinions.
I'm sure you and I will both get labeled as SJWs for even bringing up this topic.
But I am an SJW.
Well,
Fight
I'm glad someone here wears that with
me.
a badge of honor.
Huh?
But no, you are right. Like, people get very, very sensitive about these things, and I'm like, yeah, I'm all for artistic freedom, but you also, when you're gonna, you know, hide behind that, you also have to open yourself up to criticism of the things you create.
Yeah, I think both ways, like, it's legitimate to think that, you know, both of those opinions are legitimate. That's what I'm saying.
I don't really have a good transition to end this. What do you got?
Well, you have this last point that I don't know what you don't want to talk about it.
I didn't. I think we've kind of glossed over it, but I mean, I was gonna bring up the point about waifu and husbando culture playing a part in like objectification of fictional characters, which it kind of does. But then I think, yeah, but most people get over that by the time they're 14 or 15.
I am 27 and I have 4,000 husbandos all lined up on my shelf that I thoroughly please.
Whoa, what does that mean?
Honey. What goes on behind my bedroom doors, no one will know.
I think that's a great place to end this show.
Sure.
All right, so thank you all for dropping in to listen to us. We hope you enjoyed it because we always enjoy bringing this stuff to you. If you want to check out other episodes of the podcast, you can find us on Apple Podcast, YouTube, BitChute, SoundCloud, and Spotify. If you want to keep up with what we're doing, you can join us on Discord, Facebook, Twitter, and our website. Shoot us an email if you have any questions or if you have ideas for topics you'd like for us to talk about in the future. Links to all these things will be down below in the description. As always, I have been your host, Alex, and I will see you next time. Say goodnight, show.
Good night.
Oh, that's it? You don't have anything snarky?
Do I look like a snark factory to you?
Yes.
Wow. Did you just call me fat?
Yes. I'm going to go run and hide now. Good night, everybody.